Welcome back, everyone, to the Cervantes podcast. Joining me today is my bro, Artie Mabaka. We go way back, like elementary school days. Artie is an environmental studies major and a former member of the wrestling team, current member of the Outdoors Club and French Club at Washington and Lee University in Lexington, Virginia. Artie is also biracial. His mom is white and his dad is black. I wanted to discuss with Artie today his experience being of mixed race, but still identifying as a black man, and the history of mixed race people, specifically in the United States. On June 12, 1967, the Supreme Court issued its Loving v. Virginia decision, which struck down laws that banned interracial marriages as unconstitutional. This court case was surrounding a couple in the state of Virginia, Richard and Mildred Loving, Richard being a white man and Mildred being a black Native American woman who wanted to get married. Under Virginia laws, however, Richard could not marry Mildred, so the two of them traveled to Washington, D.C., where they could be married, but when they returned home, they were arrested. 1967 was only about 54 years ago. That is not that long ago, so it makes sense why some people can be so hung up on interracial relationships and the dilemma many mixed children face in their identity, even today in 2021. So, Artie, how are you? How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I wanted to speak to you about, like your experience being mixed, black and white. Was it challenging at all? Like, how was that for you? I know it's like a big question.
No, yeah. Definitely growing up, I really wasn't aware of it because so my mom's white. My older brother is black and darker skinned than I am. And then eventually when my mom met my stepdad, he's Hispanic. So having all sorts of different races, skin colors in the house kind of desensitized me to noticing any difference. Or
Because it was
more
like normal.
importantly, associating any attributes or stereotypes because those were just people in my house that I loved. And so I didn't see any difference between anybody else. And so that often on the playground would lead to me just hanging out with a lot of different like kids of multiple races. So a lot of diversity.
Right. And I think that's cool that like even as a young kid, like you grew up with a lot of different people in your house. So like to you, it's normal that a lot of people in this world don't look the same. One, two, at school, instead of you feeling left out, you made like, you know what, I'm gonna get my group of people, whether they're black, white, Hispanic, Asian, whatever, and just I'm gonna be friends. Now, if other people have a problem with who I am, then that's their problem. So I like how even like you were so young, but like you felt the necessity to do that. I think that's really important. How did your mom make sure that you stayed connected to your black culture?
She honestly would just talk to me and tell me a lot about my dad because she was a Peace Corps volunteer and she spent 9 years in Africa. And so she'd tell me all sorts of hunting and fishing and crazy sorts of adventures and whatnot about him that really kind of gave me a sense of my own like personal black culture in that it's more really Gabonese culture. But then also like black culture really came more into my life because of my brother, because he was really attracted to that because that was newer for him as he got acclimated to being in the U.S. After only living in Africa for 14 years. And so he really got into it, black culture, and was invested in it. So he'd be putting me on the music, bringing me to barbecues, like the whole vibe.
Right. Right. And I think that's important because you don't want to like if someone like if you were adopted by like a white family and you were the only mixed race kid, it would be like,
Identity
how do
crisis.
you yeah, how do you stay connected to like you can love your family, but like, that's a part of you. And I don't think because some people kind of just like, oh, like I'm not black, like I'm white. And it's like, no, you're still black, even though
Yeah.
you're adopted by someone that doesn't look like you. So I think that's dope that your mom and your brother made an effort, to for you to stay connected. Did your mom or your brother take you to the barbershop, or did you go with like just your brother or just like your black family members?
I would try to go with my brother when I was like 13, 14, because you get to that age where you just like don't want your mom driving you around all the time or driving you
Right.
crazy. But up until that point I would go with my mom and I didn't really notice too much of it. Well, okay, there's a difference because my brother's younger and it's like a different vibe. But my mom would still socialize and be talking to the barbers, and I honestly wouldn't always go to a black barber. Like my favorite barber that I go to is Dominican.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's kind of cool. I've never been to like a non-black barber, so that's interesting. That's interesting. Did he ever was it weird at
I
all?
put you
Or were you
on.
just like, okay.
I walked in, I was like, "Que lo que?" He was like, "That's all." I was like, "Hey, what's up?" Like, that was it.
Okay. That's what's up. That's what's up. Did anyone ever make you feel that you weren't black enough? Whatever that means.
Yeah, for sure. I think that especially in high school and when kids are really, yeah, I mean, you're learning a lot about yourselves and history and culture and society, all these kinds of things, and get onto topics of race. And I think that kids, whether jokingly or otherwise, often associate a lot of different characteristics with being black or being white. And so I definitely noticed and uh, felt or was made aware of like my either my being mixed or my skin color, things of that nature. Um, but I don't know. I think that those are important things to go through because it makes you reflect on what aspects of your race, your heritage are important to you, and how you want those to be reflected in actions that you do every day.
Right, because I think that if white people or white kids are telling you, "Oh, like you're black, so like I expect you to act like this," you might end up acting a certain way. Or if black people are like, "Oh, like you're too white," you might end up acting stereotypically, So I feel like it,
Just to
it
fit
can be
in.
ugly,
Yeah,
and then it's like,
it
oh, like
can.
who am I? How should I act? What do I like to do? What kind of music do I listen to? Do I want to listen to, and not just what everyone listens to? So I think that's important. But I just think that whole concept of being black enough is very like it's very toxic and very stereotypical.
Mm.
Because growing up, like I'm 100% black, as far as I know, and I feel like for me growing up, I grew up in the suburbs my whole life. So I kind of speak a certain way and I kind of have a way about going about things. And I remember other black kids would be like, oh, like you want to be white, or like white kids saying, oh, you're the good black kid, you're not like the others. And I'm just like, why am I getting it from,
Yep.
you know? And I'm sure you could definitely relate to that, being that you're kind of like, you're kind of caught in between where like it shouldn't be like stuck. You should like embrace both, which I'm glad that you do. Do
Yeah,
you
it's
ever,
tough. Definitely too black for the white kids, too white for the black kids. It's like,
and
all
we gotta
right,
stop
well,
that. We gotta stop because I feel like that's what colonization. That was one of the main purposes, to divide us. And like they
yeah.
don't want us to talk to each other, be friends, like.
It's like
That was their
my
goal.
biggest thing that in one of the things that I look at and think about is just like on a fundamental level, if there's a white cop walking down, you, me, and everybody else that's not white gonna get a little bit nervous. Gonna have a double check out of
Yes.
natural instinct. And if you have that, don't be
Yes.
divisive. Don't be separatist. Like it's all
Right.
if we could all go through that same shared experience of having to have the talk or of being discriminated against because of the fact that you're not the overarching homogenous white. If you've gone through that, then you should know that we all like it all doesn't matter. We're all in
Right.
the same boat essentially. Like
Not all black people are dark skinned. There's in the middle, there's tan, there's light, but at the end of the day, like if we get pulled over, they're stopping me and Artie. Like it's not, oh, his mom is white, so he's good today. Like, no, like there's a
if
lot
she's driving and I'm laying, yeah, maybe. But like
of
otherwise,
and even then it might be like that scene in Get Out where they tell him to get out and not her. you know so we got to stop that, because then I think sometimes a lot of mixed race black people or light skinned black people, they feel like, oh, like dark skinned people don't like us or accept us, so I'm just gonna not be friends with them or not talk. And it's like, no, like that's what the oppressor wanted. We're all the same. We have you have a privilege because you're a little lighter, but you're still black and you're still going to go through the same things that I do. It's just going to be, it might be a little better for you, but
Yeah.
it's
But
the same.
it's also interesting because it's like we have these where it's like these notions of you're like if you're being discriminated against, period. Doesn't matter if people are you're Asian and people expect you to be good at math and then you're not good and people make fun of you, like, or if it's because you're the one Hispanic who can't speak Spanish,
Yeah.
or
Yes.
it doesn't matter, like you just
Right.
are who you are.
Right. And it's like it doesn't make you like we said before, it doesn't make you any less, It doesn't me
Of
growing up in a
anything.
white area, me not knowing every single lyric to Meek Mill song, like it's okay.
Yeah,
It's all good. So yeah, we gotta change that mind, especially in our community. Because it's one thing for other
yeah,
people to do it, but it's like I remember you said like another black kid, said something to you, and it's like you're supposed to be on my team. Like you're not supposed
yeah.
to,
Like,
you know. So that's like a whole thing that we gotta, talk about in our community. Did you did you ever feel pressure to date black women from your black side of the family or just black people in general, or pressure to date white women from your white side of the family or white people in general?
I definitely felt like I naturally always, I mean, like liked white girls. Um, but I definitely felt pressure from like friends of mine, like in high school and stuff. Just
Right.
like, oh, you don't like the sisters? Like, what's going on? And for me, it was just like I just hadn't met like the right one for me yet, but we'll
Right. And I
see.
think
Just gotta be open to it.
Right. And I think some people who take cancel culture too far, and you were famous and you said that, it's like, oh, Artie, singer Artie Mabaka does not like black women. He's canceled. And it's
Yeah,
like, no, you have a preference. If you said that you only date white women or you're not attracted to any black women or anybody else, then that's a problem because of the wording. But if you
yeah,
have a preference, I don't see anything wrong with that. You
yeah,
said I haven't found my sister yet. So there's a possibility, and that means you're open to dating a black woman. I don't know why people pick apart or like they'll hear the last part of what you said. And I just
hmm
feel like we can't do that. Especially like us. We can't do that to each other because then we'll never be
yeah.
free. Like it's always gonna be an argument.
Yeah, facts.
So I'm glad
It's
that
very dividing for like the whole community. Like,
right. Because then it's like, then you're gonna be like, damn, like my people don't like me. Okay, peace out. But it's like, nah, we
mm,
shouldn't be doing that. So yeah, I'm glad that you were honest about that because that's not something you or anybody that has a preference should be ashamed of. So are you a little bit of a weird question, but are you proud of being mixed?
oh yeah, for sure. I think it's like there have been a bunch of different instances where I've brought like my white friend that I play tennis with and my like Hispanic friend and that I used to wrestle with and like my black friends that I went to elementary school with and bring them all together and we all hang out and it's all
Nice.
good. And it's like it's very nice to see like no matter what, it's kind of like a melting pot of like when hanging out with people because it's just like all sorts of diverse backgrounds. And I feel like because I'm mixed, it's kind of like you get a little bit of acceptance from everybody. And sometimes it's not always acceptance, sometimes it's denial. And that's things you got to overcome and work through. But when it is acceptance, it's great because it's just like most oftentimes, like if I walk up to someone who's Hispanic, they will assume I'm Hispanic just because like the
Oh
skin color is
really?
close
Okay.
enough. Yeah.
Okay.
And I guess I go to a Dominican barber too. But
They start speaking Spanish to
um,
you, and it's like, I don't know.
yeah, just bringing people together. Yeah, I think being mixed definitely is something I'm proud of because I feel like it just um augments my ability to do that.
Right. Yeah, I think that's dope. I think I try to do that too. Like I try to diversify my friend group and have people from different cultures, races, religions, be in my circle. But sometimes I think that if your group is like filled with people that are non-black, sometimes you can run into problems where it's like you're speaking about an experience and they don't get why you're
No one
upset.
can relate to.
Right, or they don't get the joke, or they don't get the movie, or and I feel like that's when it's like, oh, like now I need to speak with my black friends about this. So it's like, it's a balance between like have diverse friends, but make sure that you have people that you can relate to so you don't drive yourself crazy. And it's like, why do I feel like I'm talking to a brick wall? So yeah, I think that's dope. Definitely have different types of friends. Did you, I know I did you have any notable mixed people that inspired you or made you feel seen?
I mean Obama, um,
Right, that's a good one. That's a great one.
Trevor Noah.
Trevor Noah.
Great book if you haven't read it. Born a Crime. I
Right.
actually haven't given that much thought though. Those are like the first two that come to mind. But yeah,
Right. And I think Trevor Noah, it's interesting because he's black and white and he's from South Africa and they went through
the
apartheid.
apartheid. Yeah,
And that's a whole, like, I feel like that's just as bad maybe as what we went through as Black Americans here in this country. And
honestly, sometimes I'm like in reading his book, it was worse. Like it
I
was
gotta get that
illegal
book.
for his existence to like
Illegal to exist.
just like
That's a different
illegal.
type of, yeah.
Like it's
Yeah,
crazy.
that's different because I remember he spoke about for those who don't know Trevor Noah, he's a comedian and a host of the Daily Show. He spoke about how he wasn't even allowed to walk on the same sidewalk as his black mom or his white dad. So it's just crazy how like it was so extreme over there and here. If
Yeah,
you were born from if you were a kid and you were born from a black enslaved woman, you would be a slave and then your dad owns you. Like that's it's kind of weird. And then if you're born from a white woman and a black enslaved man, you're kind of outcasted. So it's like it's very the history is very, I don't want to say controversial, but it's very like sensitive and it's harm there's a lot of harm that was done. And I think that some people are like, oh, I don't care what he said. I don't care about Artie, like, or his experience. I'm black and like I'm the real black and I went through it. But it's like, no, these people are black too. And their black experience is just as valid as someone who isn't mixed. Like it's not like it's not like a good problem to have. No, it's a bad, like this is bad.
yeah.
But you just gotta, like you said, like be proud of who you are, be proud of where you come from, and not let ignorant, stupid people, whether it's in your community or outside of your community, let you feel that you're less than or that you're crying over something that's not that serious, because it is. And the interracial marriage was legalized in 1967. Like that wasn't that long ago. So I
It's
think
2021, right? That means
yeah,
that was like
I think that was like
interracial marriage was
54 years.
legalized less than 55 years ago. That's crazy.
That's not a long time ago.
Not even a century.
Where did your mom or did your brother give you, the talk that a lot of people give to
Yeah.
black children?
Yeah, it's funny because like my mom was white and she really emphasized the fact that she's like, Artie, I know that like this isn't this is not gonna sound good, but it's the truth and you're gonna have to swallow it like a pill. But you are going to be treated differently in these scenarios because of your skin color. And that is not something you can change. Even if you go to school with other kids who are white and you're really good friends with them and you hang out in their house and you're another son to them, it doesn't change anything when it comes to the police and how you need to ensure your own safety by being smart. And like it was a very heavy talk, obviously.
Right.
But that was one of the other things she emphasizes, is that like you're gonna have friends who don't have these conversations with their parents. This conversation's a 2-minute one and not an hour long one, because all they have to do is just license and registration, don't need to worry about anything. You can't move your hands like that. Like you need
No,
like
you
all sorts of
know.
different things.
And
Yeah.
I think yeah, I think that's important. I remember when my parents gave me the talk, I was so confused because I was very young. And at that point, it was like before Trayvon Martin and before certain stuff. And I was like, oh, but the police are my friends. They're like, I wave to them. They're like, wave to them. They hand out candy on Halloween. And I felt like when they told me that, I was very like confused and kind of like, oh, that's not true. and I didn't believe it. And then, you know, I remember 2014, sixth grade. Sixth grade. I was just like, wait, but he was walking home and all he had was Skittles and he was wearing a hoodie and he wasn't a criminal. So why did he get killed like that? He was killed by a Hispanic man, but I'm half Hispanic. Does that mean that half my family doesn't like me? So it's just very like, it really opened my mind.
Yeah.
Wow, like people are racist and like some
Yeah.
police don't care about you and they're not there to protect and serve people that look like us. So it was very mind blowing. And I should have believed my parents when they told me. But you know, kids, like they don't listen or some kids
Oh yeah.
don't realize that they're black until like somebody like points it out to them or like someone makes them feel different. So I think that you know, the talk that we're talking about, it's not the birds and the bees. It's a talk that a lot of
Yeah.
black parents, you know, give to their children because they gotta be prepared. You know, like you said about moving your hands too fast or arguing. You know, a lot of
Being argumentative, like yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. Like
right. I'm going to my glove box. I'm taking out the license. You know,
like yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's serious. It's life or death. So
I
I'm
remember
glad
after
that
that
shit was brave enough.
conversation, I had that conversation in like maybe sixth grade, fifth or
Oh,
sixth
okay.
grade. Um, and after that, I would stand up for it, but I did no longer gave the Pledge of Allegiance. I was like, I don't,
Oh, wow.
because
Okay.
like the amount of like, because after my like I had that conversation with my mom, I was like, there's clearly injustice in this country,
Wow. And
and
at 12,
it
you were like, nah, I'm good.
like
Like,
it like because you think about like I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It's the last like couple lines that bother me. Indivisible with
with
liberty and
liberty
justice
and
for
justice
all. And
for
it's
all.
just
That is
like
not true.
I can't pledge allegiance to a country like that because it doesn't exist.
Right. And not gonna lie, when I was in school, I was kind of nervous. Like when I was younger, like middle school, I was kind of nervous to like not stand. Um, but I remember when like I think Trump was either running or he was already in office. I was like, I'll pray because I went to Catholic school, but I'm not gonna pledge because there's literally like you literally a football player got fired for standing up for his people, and now the NFL wants to give back to charity and have stupid
Mm-hmm. They
commercials.
had a
It's like
whole
it's
thing trying
very
to get
like,
him back, trying to everything because they were
you
like,
know,
oh wait, yeah, more people care about it now. So you know what? Turns out you were right.
like give him his job back. Like give this man reparations. Give all of us reparations, you know? Like, give me my
yeah, for
check. Give me my
real.
stimulus. Give me my stimulus and give me my reparations check. Cause it's just, you know, it's not, and I feel like we shouldn't have to if we don't want to. I shouldn't have to feel scared to sit down. You know, I should be able to sit down and not get kicked out of school, whether it's public or private.
Yeah.
You know, because private schools have their own rules and stuff. But nah, if I don't want to, then I shouldn't have to. You know, especially with everything that's going on. Like, nah, it's it's a liberty and justice for me. You know,
Hmm.
did you have to check any of your white friends or family members on a joke or comment they made about you or black people in general? Like forgetting that you're
Never a
black.
family member. Well, okay, yes, like my little cousins, because all of my younger cousins are white. So that's always interesting to me
Wow. Okay.
because I'm the oldest cousin, and my brother was like 11 years older than I am. So that age gap made them just not as relatable. Like they didn't
Because he
relate
was
to
already
him as
out the
easily.
house.
But I'm 6 years older than the oldest one. Um,
Okay.
and then the rest of them are all just like little. So they all look like followed me around like freaking ducklings.
Okay.
But I every now and then they would make a comment because it's like they're kids and they're gonna notice the fact that I am their one cousin that doesn't look like the rest of them. And so every now and then they would make comments and all that kind of stuff. I can see their parents like raise my eyebrow out of the corner of my eye, like, "Ooh." And because it was like,
Okay, but you never
like,
took like offense to it,
but
or
I
like,
never took offense to it or
okay,
anything because one, I mean, the majority of them are under the age of 10. So it's just like your kids, like,
Okay.
but the other thing was because I was like, this is an opportunity for me to kind of like partition out a little bit of clarity for them for future reference
And like educate them on
situations
why
and
it's
people,
wrong.
and exactly, and not even that sometimes that it was wrong, but it's like, look, you can phrase this in a way that won't be offensive to people, or won't, cause the dialogue to become confrontational. And it's hard to put that into like simple words for a kid,
For
but
young
like
kids. Yeah.
but you can try to help them figure out that boundary a little bit better and make it a little bit clearer for them. And I think that's important because they're not going to get it at home.
Oh,
Because no one no
okay.
one no one no one of color is at home, because I'm like
Right.
the the person of color, at least on my mom's side of the family, well, and my brother and my stepdad.
Wow. Okay. Wow. No, yeah,
So yeah.
that's real. I remember like I'm half Puerto Rican and a lot of my cousins are younger and a lot of them are not like Afro Latino, they're kind of like on the lighter side. And I remember like going to my like titi's house and like I met like the younger cousins met me for the first time when I was like mad young too. And I remember one cousin was like, "Wow, like not even like saying hello, but just like, wow, you're really dark brown." And I was just like, "Yeah, and you're light brown, but we're still family." He was like he was just shocked for like a good like 20 minutes. And I was just like, "Wow, like it's just so crazy that like some kids like don't care, but other kids are very like we're different. Like they know the difference. And
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like good or bad if for a young
Mm.
person to like 'cause I feel like that shouldn't be the first thing out his mouth, you know?
Okay, but at the same time, like I remember my 5-year-old cousin, Joey, who's just like, dad's a construction worker, mom's a waitress, very blue collar family, like, right? So take with that what you
Right,
will. Because
right.
like, and they're my family, I love them, but we go to the beach for the first time, and I'm like holding his hand, like we're walking across the sand, and he looks up at me, he's like, cousin Artie, did you spend too much time in the sun? And I was like,
Wow.
bro,
Wow.
you can't be saying that to people. And he was like,
Wow.
why? And I was like, because it's offensive. He's like, why? And I was like, because I was born with this skin color. He's like, oh. And he's like, so that's like that for everyone. And I was like, yeah, you're born with the skin color that you have. Um, it doesn't, sometimes it can change because of the sun, but it doesn't change you
Drastically.
completely. It's just like it
Right.
changes the shade a little bit. Instead of being blue, it's light blue. Like, and
Right.
he was like, "Oh," he's like, "So your mom's," and like, and you can literally see his 5-year-old brain putting it
Like
together, like one plus
working.
one equals two. He's like, "Oh, so like your dad's like black and your mom's white, and so you're like your dad."
You're
And
like,
I was
"Oh."
like, yeah, that's how that works. And he was like, huh. And then he goes and builds a sandcastle, and it's just like, you're 5, and that was that easy for you. Should be
Do
that
you
easy
feel
for
like
everybody.
do you feel like they should be aware of that
Oh,
complexity?
totally. I think
Okay.
it's something that like, because for them, it's like you're gonna go to school, and especially in this day and age when we're getting to be more PC culture, and having politically correct ways to say things, and trying to be respectful of everyone's heritage and ethnicity, and gender, and everything. And so like you really need to watch sometimes what you say, because the language that some people use in their homes, not language that you're going to want to hear in schools and things like that.
Right.
And so I feel like, even that aside, like it's just so easy for, he could have asked that same question at school, and then
It could
had
have
some
been
kid go to the teacher and be like, he just made me really upset. Like,
right.
I'd rather he like,
Like
you
say the
know,
dumb thing
no,
to
not to,
you and then
to
you
me. Yeah.
okay. Alrighty. Yeah, I think okay.
Cause it's like that way you have more of a chance to
Right.
than
And
you would
you're in
in
a
a
safe
regular
space.
social setting. Yeah. exactly.
Because you're not gonna cancel or suspend your
Because like
little
it's
cousin.
my cousin. Like I still
Right.
love you. Now, I have a 14-year-old cousin. She could be a little out of pocket sometimes, and I'm like, all right, you check yourself.
Mm.
But that's different because she's 14, and so it's like you have to
Okay.
like
I see what you mean.
yeah.
That makes sense. Did you ever try really hard to fit in with black people or to fit in with white people?
It's funny because I never because my mom was white. I always like I would like well obviously I would like wear my heart on my sleeve. There's that expression, but I always felt like I had this like little badge of acceptance. It's like, hey, by the way, I got the check. Like I'm good. Like my
Okay.
mom's like, don't worry, we cool. Like
Okay.
I'm allowed in. Like
Okay. Okay.
and so I really only ever felt more pressure honestly to fit in with black kids because I had that more of an absence of black culture in my life because my only outlet for it was my brother. And once he moved out, like
Then it's like,
before I was done with middle school, it was that much harder for him to be that outlet for me. But then friends became that outlet slowly over time, and it worked out somewhat well. I feel
right.
like I got a decent balance of it, but still, it's tough.
Do you feel like sports help with that, like basketball, um, and like wrestling?
I'm still terrible at basketball. I can't ball like to save my life, but
Okay.
wrestling totally helped with that
Okay.
because it was just like yeah, I just gave me more confidence. And it's definitely a sport where like you had
There's
a
like a
lot of
brotherhood.
people of color and like just diverse people overall.
In a 2019 Rap Radar interview with Canadian rapper Drake, he was asked about the line in his song Diplomatic Community where he says black excellence, but I guess when it comes to me, it's not the same though. All goody. Drake told the interview that he sometimes feels excluded from black culture. I felt the other side of judgment, racial judgment sometimes, being light skinned, being Canadian, having people I look up to and respect tell me I can't identify with what's going on. Drake said, and then he explained the sometimes some of my blackest friends can be just as cruel on the other end by making you feel excluded or making you feel like you can't get in on this. I don't feel like people say when Drake is the artist of the decade, wow, a black artist is the artist of the decade, and don't think anybody says this, and I associate myself as a black man. So, do you understand where he's coming from? Have you ever felt that way?
I totally understand where he's coming from, but see, I struggle with Jake. And the reason I struggle with Jake is
Okay.
because Drake was on Degrassi. Like, we cannot forget. So, like,
True.
it's
This
tough
is
because
true.
there's this there's this aspect of being black that's like you that inherently involves like you've been through the struggle or you know what the struggle is. You're familiar.
Okay.
And I feel uh like Drake gets a lot of chatter because he is not only extremely successful to a point where it's almost overwhelming the music industry.
Right.
Like um
Like
but
hits
like
and
he is also very 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 light skinned. And so I feel like because of that and his hair is shorter, he like that kind of thing. He has the waves. He
he has a different mix experience than yours. You think?
Exactly, like
Yeah.
for sure. And so it's hard to even speak on it. But I will say, like, I can understand like why he gets hate for it because he's dominating the game. Like
Okay.
what push comes to shove, like he's just putting out music at a like that's doing so well. It's like drowning out. It was spent like years in the top 10, and it's just like okay, you
Right.
get to that point, it's like now I don't like you because you're making it hard for me to do well. Like, and so
Oh,
then
so you
you
think it's
like
just
then
like
you can understand
haters?
why yeah.
Okay. Because
Um
I felt bad. I was like, damn, like you don't feel like black excellence, and it's like that came from like I feel like somebody must have told him that. Like, oh, like you like chill, bro. Like you not you not Jay-Z. You not,
yeah,
and it's like, no, just
exactly.
because he's just because he's on the lighter side doesn't mean that he can't be Black excellence. Look at, Thurgood Marshall. Like, he was very light. Katherine Johnson, the former mathematician, she looked
Look
like
at
a white woman.
Obama. Obama light skin. Like
Obama,
he's pretty
so I
light.
feel like, it's tricky, but at the same time, what you said was very valid. His experience was different because he didn't really start from the bottom, really. Like, you were kind of a
And
child
even
star.
if he did, like it's been so long. And I feel like often that's one of the things that Black people, unfortunately, historically, can just relate to. Like it's like you
Mm,
seen some shit, me too. Like
okay, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. So it's tough. I think he needs to, instead of him just speaking to a interviewer, I think he needs to like sit down with like a group of Black men, or sit down like how we're doing, and speak about how he feels, and then like, the Black men speak about how they, because I think, there needs to be some type of discourse, because but I appreciate him opening up, because that's not easy to do. I'm sure that, speaking, he has so many followers, so like anything he says is so like taken apart. So I think
it's
that's
meme to yeah. But like then you have, like what was it? You have guys playing Drake. Now that's like that's
mm,
Black Jesus right there. Like literally, like just
oh, like saying that he's the
like
like the goat.
not even like yeah, honestly, insane that he's the GOAT because he's just like I mean he's pouring out love and his resources to a damaged community, and it's like yeah, they just had a recent event, and it's like why couldn't you be doing that before in a lot of other places? And maybe he was, and I don't know, but
Mm,
like it when he made that God's plan video, it's just like that was very for the community, like Black culture, and that's where I got to a point where I was like, all right, you you are like,
okay, you think that
but
you think that saved him, like his
that was one of the bigger things to me because it was like I've only known him for as long as I've been alive. So like, to me, that was like that's a solid like
right, because he has gotten
good
backlash
job.
for not being super vocal on social media about, Black Lives Matter, police brutality. And
Yeah,
it
because
goes to the
like
bigger
he has a
question, like, should you post like, hey, I'm at the protest, hey, I'm doing this, hey, I'm doing, like, should you do that? Or is it just like, is it okay to be low key sometimes,
it's okay to be low key so long as there's some form of support, active thought, that kind of thing. Because I get it, he's Drake. He can't be saying like, "Oh, I'm at the protest and this that," because
Right,
he's Drake.
right.
But it doesn't mean that he can't use his platform
That's
in
light
as
on
a manner in which to spread that motivation, that positive energy, that is supportive of the Black Lives Matter movement and
right.
all sorts of other important organizations too.
Right, because since he is Black and he partakes in Black culture, you need to give back. You have a
Yeah,
lot of money and you have a huge platform. Like, whatever you say, people like retweet and like and believe. So, if you're gonna put out music and you're gonna, you know, show your love for basketball and certain things, show your love for Black Lives Matter as well. Going back in time a little bit, singer-songwriter Mariah Carey and her mother Pat sat down with Oprah on the Oprah Winfrey Show back in 1999 to discuss her struggle being biracial and the discrimination her and her family faced. Pat, Mariah's mom, explained how her family disowned her and someone threw a brick through her window when they sat down to eat dinner once. Her mom is white and her dad is Black from Venezuela. He's like Afro Latino. Fast forward to a 2020 Apple TV Plus interview with Mariah and Oprah again. Mariah opened up about how she was jumped at a slumber party when she was young and was called the N-word by a bunch of white girls. Mariah told Oprah that she's tired of explaining to people that she's Black, and she doesn't really feel the need to speak about those tragic experiences to prove that she is Black. So, do you feel like mixed people should constantly defend their background and identity, especially if they're ambiguous looking like Mariah, or just leave it alone?
I think it's tough because you try to explain your background and your identity, and that makes you more vulnerable. That means people have more to attack, more
Mm,
to more to get at, and so
right, like
that's
that didn't
that's
happen.
always
You're
tough.
lying. Yeah.
Um, but then it comes to a point of just like self-defense and standing up for yourself. And it's like if you have a person with whom you have a friendship, relationship, whatever, that is, presenting so much of that negative energy and thought. I mean, they're not having anything. There's nothing to be gained.
Right.
Cut
Cut
the
them
cord.
off.
Like
Yeah.
50 Cent, I think, said, what did he say? He said in a video that his grandfather told him, if you can't learn something from a conversation from someone, they have nothing to offer you.
Wow. Wow. I like
And
that.
I was like, ooh, yeah, that's what's up right there.
Yeah. Cause I think, yeah, like you don't, she is very, light skinned, and she hasn't made a brown skin girl video like Beyonce. She hasn't really done that. But at the same time, it's like you don't have to like we said, off camera, you don't have to constantly have a picture of your parents and be like, look, I'm black, like look where I come from. Like it's okay. Like if you know that, like my mom told me, like, because growing up, like I'm being that I'm Puerto Rican and I don't look Puerto Rican, whatever that means. I would always constantly like, like I'm Puerto Rican, and then it's like I would show my mom, and then people are like, oh, but she's too dark, and it's like, so my mom has to look like J Lo to be Puerto Rican. Like, what are we doing here? But
Yeah.
at one point, like I used to get really upset because it's like I already don't look stereotypically Puerto Rican, but I love my culture and I love like waving the Puerto Rican flag on the Puerto Rican Day Parade. So it's like, why are these people not accepting me? And my mom was just like, you know what? Like, let people think and do whatever. It's like at the end of the day, you know what you are. You're proud of that, and that's it. I think The Rock was like, I'm black, I'm Samoan, that's it. And I was like, that's dope. Just leave it at that. If you know what you are and you're proud of where you come from, outside people, haters, even some, ignorant cousins or whatever, just let them, they're not offering to your life, like you said. So just cut them off or just don't
Yeah.
speak to them.
Sometimes I feel bad because people are like, oh, I'm afraid of losing people, like, things like that. Like, oh, I'm like, like,
You don't need those people though.
Jay-Z said it best. A loss ain't a loss, it's a lesson. Appreciate the pain, it's a blessing. That's
Oh,
facts.
that's real. That's real. Because there's a lot of people that I look back on. It's like, yeah, I didn't really need them anyway.
Hey,
you
like,
know,
I'm not missing out on much. I don't feel
right,
any regret. So
right. You know how you try so hard to fit in, whether it's like middle school or high school. Like looking back, I remember like I wanted to sit at that table. I wanted to go to that party. I wanted to talk to that girl. I wanted to wear those sneakers. And it's like at the end of the day, it's like I got to sit at that table, and it's like I don't like it didn't my grades didn't go up, my wave didn't come, like my intelligence didn't come from that. So it's like it's important to be around like-minded people, but people that support you, believe in you, and let you talk about things like that. Like I'm appreciative that I can talk to you, and you're someone that can speak directly from this experience, and like you've taken that and you didn't let you like take you down. Like you still like, I'm mixed, and what's good. Like, like you didn't let it make you sad. So I think that's important. Thank you, Artie, once again for joining me on this discussion. I really appreciate it. I think people need to understand that, while it is cool to have more than one race or culture or ethnicity, it can be very hard for some people. We need to give people the space and compassion to vent and speak about their experience because it could really help someone else. You can follow Artie on Instagram at AJ_Mabaka. Thank you guys. Thank you for listening. See you next week.